Hey everyone, let's read this piece about alcohol for station one, and then you can answer the question. So the directions just say to read or listen, which is what you're doing now, to the text, and then answer the question that follows. Once you're done, you're going to move on to the next station. All right, so on July 17th, 1984, President Ronald Reagan signed the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, a law that required states to raise the drinking age to 21 or face a 10% cut to their federal highway funding. All states complied and adopted the higher drinking age. They didn't want cuts to their funding, so they all adopted the 21-year-old drinking age. Since then, arguments against the drinking age have persisted. Some argue that making alcohol illegal gives it a taboo allure and actually increases underage drinking rates. Others argue that if you can fight in a war, you should be able to drink, because you can fight in a war at 18, but you can't drink until you're 21. Only seven countries have drinking ages as high as the United States, which begs the question, why is ours so high? So here's America's history with alcohol. From 1176 to 1919, there was no national drinking age. Prior to Prohibition, which is when drinking was illegal, the drinking age varied from state to state, with most states not enforcing a drinking age at all. From 1920 until 1930, Prohibition happened. In 1920, the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was put in place, which prohibited, meaning it was illegal, to sell and drink alcohol beverages in the United States completely. From 1933 until the late 1960s, this is when post-prohibition was happening. So in December 1933, the 21st Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was ratified, which actually took away prohibition. It repealed it. Most states set their drinking age to 21, but some set it lower. Then in the late 1960s and 1970s, the drinking age was lowered. During the late 1960s and 1970s, nearly all states actually had their drinking age set to 18. This, however, led to a huge increase in alcohol-related car accidents, and drunk driving was deemed a public health crisis. In the mid-1970s, 60%, so over half of all traffic fatalities, so people who died in traffic accidents, were alcohol-related, according to the National Institute of Health. Over 2/3 of car accidents involving persons that were from 16 to 20 were alcohol-related. From 1984 to 2014, the national drinking age raised to 21. In response to the drunk driving epidemic of the 70s, President Reagan passed the Minimum Drinking Age Act in July 1984, a law that mandated states increase the drinking age to 21. The law worked too. According to the NIH, the drunk driving accidents have dropped by nearly 50% since the law was passed. The greatest proportion of this decline was among 16 to 20-year-olds, so kids who previously could drink but now couldn't. Approximately 37% of traffic fatalities in this age group were alcohol-related in 2013, compared to more than 75% in the 1970s. So there's still drunk driving accidents happening in that age group, but it's decreased by over half. So that's the social side of the reasoning why our drinking age is 21. Now let's look at the science. Cognitive development, so brain. College kids hate the drinking age, not that they comply with it, meaning they drink even if they're under 21. Not all, but most, or some. About 4 out of 5 college students drink alcohol, according to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. And more than 90% of this alcohol is consumed through binge drinking, meaning drinking a lot at one time. This is a huge concern among public health officials, as late adolescence is one of the most important phases of your cognitive development. The brain undergoes considerable restructuring and specialization during this period, so the brain is changing a lot during those years. Research shows that consuming alcohol, particularly through binge drinking, before the brain is fully mature, may cause permanent harm to the brain and interfere with cognitive development. One area of the brain that experiences the most rapid changes during teenage years is the prefrontal cortex. We've talked about that a lot with Mind Up, which is the area of the brain involved in judgment and decision making. Thus, teens are biologically more likely to have lapses in judgment, and when you combine that with alcohol, it's a dangerous mixture, making questionable decisions much more likely. Consuming alcohol while the brain is still developing can also increase one's risk of alcohol dependency, meaning you depend on alcohol and an addiction. A 2011 study of 600 Finnish twins, so twins from Finland, found that people who drank regularly in their teenage years were more likely to develop alcohol dependency later in life. The study interviewed twins on their drinking habits when they were 18 and then again when they were 25. And this is particularly notable because the twins shared the same environmental and genetic background, factors that could have influenced their alcohol behavior. So in those twins, they found that twins that were, or people that were dependent on alcohol when they were 18 had a alcohol dependency still when they were 25. So the question I'd like you to answer is based on the social evidence, so the drunk driving laws that were put into place and why, or the age limits that were put into place and why they were, and then this cognitive science, what happens with your brain. Do you think our drinking age should continue to be 21 in the United States? And then tell me why or why not. So if you say yes, give me a reason why. If you say no, give me a reason why. If you have any questions, come find me. Once you're done, move on to part 2, which is all about marijuana, some laws about it here in Massachusetts, and then a video, another question about that. And then last but not least, you're going to look through this site for vaping, and there are 2 questions for you there. As always, come find me if you have any questions.